welcome everybody, and it's wonderful to see the huge turnout and um, interest in this second summer school. I'm sorry that, of course, we're still restricted and can't meet face to face. The essence of many of these schools is not only the one things you learn on it, but also the interactions and the networking that you do. Let us hope that we are gradually coming out of the pandemic, and that sooner rather than later, we will all have an opportunity to meet one another. Nonetheless, I hope this week that you will be able to find this not only interesting and stimulating, but perhaps also it will, particularly for the early career researchers, be able to establish sort of new ideas of how your research might go in the future. My role today is quite simple. I'm just going to take you a little bit through Europlanet, what Europlanet is and why we host these events and so on, and also to encourage you to participate in other Europlanet activities. So we always have to quote our funders. We're told off if we don't, but very importantly, this whole exercise, this program is supported by the Europlanet research infrastructure. This is a program put together supported by the European Commission, and it aims to build an international community in planetary sciences. And I'm going to give you a little bit of a guide to that. Now, first of all, if you haven't heard of Europlanet before, Europlanet was established in 2004. Why 2004? That was the year in which the Cassini-Huygens mission reached Saturn. And the Huygens probe in that was the kind of first all-European built space entity. All the instruments and so on it were from Europe. And it was the launch, if you like, of Europe becoming a space exploration power. It was designed to land on the icy moon Titan, and its data, which worked very well, its data on that moon has sort of transformed our understanding as being a lunar surface in which there is lakes and rivers made of methane and so on. So it's a very sort of quasi-terrestrial world, and many people believe that it may be a kind of example of a prebiotic early Earth. Nonetheless, that was the kickoff to a variety of European space programs, many of which are relevant to this workshop. For example, the ESA missions to Mars, which will, of course, also lead in the next couple of years to the deployment of a rover, a European rover. Now, Europlanet was brought together to then say, okay, we're now doing these things in Europe. We need to build the planetary science community. We need to have a sense of community, and we need to have a forum to engage and debate and discuss our research, and also to collaborate between ourselves. So the Europlanet has a wide science brief, including astrobiology, the origins of life, particularly on search, for example, extinct or extant life on Mars, the studies of the comets and the asteroids, building on the successful Rosetta mission, the first mission ever to land an instrument on a comet, again, the ESA program, and the forthcoming ESA Comet Interceptor program, understanding the early Earth and the ideas of the emergence of life on Earth, the study of exoplanets, a topic that has literally developed within the last few decades. So we're now actually, with a series of ESA missions like Cheops and Plato, and in the future Ariel, able to actually start to look at the atmospheres of such planets to identify biomarkers which might tell us whether they've developed life or not. The study of meteorites, or basically the fossils of the solar system, to understand how the solar system was developed. The study of planetary atmospheres and surfaces, which we'll particularly be talking about in this GMAP, the understanding and the mapping of the surfaces of many of the planets. Indeed, I would suggest we actually know probably more about the surface of Mars than we do the surface of the Earth, because the Earth is covered in oceans, and we still know very little about parts of the ocean floor. And of course, Europlanet encourages, supports, lobbies for an increase in the work that's going on in Europe in space exploration, but increasingly also the ideas of exploiting space. You will hear a term perhaps called Space 4.0, the next generation of space, where the public and the private initiatives come together to use space as a platform, not only to use as a platform for telecommunications or remote sensing looking at the Earth, but in Europlanet increasingly to think about how we can use space as a platform, either through the space station or coming sooner than we probably think, lunar bases and other things, to look out and to use space as a platform through space telescopes, etc., like the JWST, which of course has just been launched, to look out at other worlds. What we do in Europlanet is a series of science through networking, a series of facilities, both laboratory and field studies. Some of our field studies are quite unique. We send teams out to places around the world which act as planetary analogues. You may not get to go to Mars, you may not get to go to the moon, but you can go to places on the Earth which are analogues of that. And of course, that's again important for what you're discussing here this week, and the mapping of actually having analogues in which we can test our models and we can test our experimental apparatus before we send it. We've particularly worked in the Danakil profession in Ethiopia, which is analogous to some of the conditions in Mars. We've also gone to Spain. There's a lake in Spain which turns pink. You can see in the bottom picture there when the bacteria, the algae, change bloom. We also do things like looking at the investigations of Mars, of the dust in the Mars atmosphere, incredibly important for testing of the rovers, Perseverance, ExoMars, and shortly the Franklin rover. And we allow academics from all around the world to test those instruments for the rovers in the Wind Faculty facility at Aarhus. We also do a lot of work on simulating and calibration to support spectroscopic missions. So, for example, on Bepi Colombo and the forthcoming Envision trip to Venus. And we do that by opening up laboratories like the DLR and Grenoble facilities and many others for people to do those laboratory tests and measurements, which can then be used to interpret observations and build instruments. We open up a lot of facilities for the analysis of sample return, particularly meteorites and so on. The Natural History Museum here in the UK, the Free University in Amsterdam, Zurich, and the Open University also in the UK. All have nice meteorite sample collections and the analytical tools to analyze them. And we launched ground-based campaigns in support of the mission. So, for example, we founded last year the Europlanet Telescope Network, where from ground-based observations that support, for example, the Bepi Colombo program to Mercury and impacts on, for example, Jupiter, cometary impacts and so on Jupiter. And we'll be doing a lot of studies in the next few years on the study of Venus before the Envision mission. So Europlanet sits in what we call the European Space Triangle, which basically is a collaboration between the academics, which probably most people in this mission, this meeting are involved in, industry, the development of the tools necessary for understanding the space missions, which again is also relevant to this meeting because increasingly we're not just talking about hardware, we're talking a lot about software, programming, machine learning tools developed within this project, which can be applied to space programs. And of course, the missions themselves are currently run by ESA. So we have this kind of triangle, and Europlanet, the research infrastructure, particularly aims at trying to link together the academic and the industry. And you'll hear, I think, in the coming week that GMAP and so on is central to that. Now, but finally, really for you, how can you get involved? How can you play a role here in Europlanet? Well, we have a series of programs we call the networking activities, which look at various aspects of the networking, industry, global collaboration, looking at policy and media, the Europlanet Telescope Network, as I just mentioned. But I particularly want to mention the early career community. If you join the Europlanet Society, you can join the early career network if you're an early stage researcher. That's roughly from start of PhD to early postdoc. And it's a very good networking activity to share experiences and also to get webinars and so on that help you, for example, to write proposals for fellowships, either Marie Curie or maybe ERC. You all have access to the facilities, not just the planetary field logs and the laboratories, but particularly what you're going to be hearing about this week. That's the simulation tools and the databases, which are run through a program called VESPA. And also you'll hear about SPIDER for space weather. And GMAP, the geological mapping and the machine learning, has been brought into this latest of the research infrastructures. This is the third of them. And it was specifically targeted at bringing in this community because we feel it's very timely now to develop the tools and records and databases on the mapping of surfaces as we move out into these other other planetary surfaces. So as I said, you can join the Europlanet Society. I urge you all to do so. When you join the Europlanet Society, there is a regional structure. We are headquartered, the executive office of the infrastructure is in the UK here at the University of Kent. The society itself is headquartered and managed from the European Science Foundation in Strasbourg. But when you join, you can join a regional hub. In fact, you can join two, because if you're, say, a student or a postdoc who's moved out of your home country to study abroad, you might want to be in the regional hub of your home country, as well as the one in which you're studying. I've mentioned the Europlanet Early Career Network, an incredibly active group of people. They always need more people to do things. But if you are early career, it's a wonderful opportunity, and there are many, many events, and I strongly advise you to do that. We do have an annual conference. This will feature all the things that we do in the research infrastructure, including the geological mapping and the machine learning this week. And that this year is going to be held in Granada in September 18 to 23. And we aim to have it in person. We do actually hope that we will all actually meet up. And I think we're increasingly confident that that will happen. So really a great opportunity for you to come present your work in posters and so on, or even presentations, and meet people. We have a diversity committee where we're really keen to diversify the type of people who come into this. There's a lot of work being done on gender, on trying to get more women into planetary sciences, but more generally than that, bringing in communities that perhaps don't see planetary science or science in general as something they can do. We have industry and outreach working groups. If you may already be doing this, but if you participate in schools talks or open days for your institution and so on, then certainly look at some of the things that we're doing in outreach and some of the materials. The executive board is elected, and if you're a member of a society, you get to vote. So please join. As I said, we are what next? We started in the 2004, 2005, as you can see in this chart, and we've moved through steadily a series of the research infrastructures, each one getting bigger, wider, more collaborations, and etc. And it is actually unique. There is nothing else in the world that actually aims to bring the planetary science community to share facilities in this way. Interestingly, it now appears that the Americans, within the American national community, is looking at doing something similar. But we are international. We are aiming to mobilize planetary scientists across the world, not just in Europe. And indeed, many of you may actually be from outside Europe, but studying in Europe. And that's certainly something we want to do. We launched our global strategy at the end of last year to develop contacts and collaborations, open up more field sites and laboratories, extend the ground-based telescope network. And we're increasingly working with other communities in space, particularly the astrophysicists who have their own research infrastructure, the astrochemists, particularly through JWST, and as I've already stated, very much developing the ideas of astrobiology and origins of life. We work across all education areas. We have work in schools to encourage the next generation to join us, as well as in universities and the early career and the postgraduate training networks. And in fact, we just submitted a postgraduate training network in the general area of planetary science to the Commission a few months ago. So I hope that you will not take away from this meeting, not only learning about the very exciting topics you're going to hear, but also that you will take the opportunity in this week to go on to the Europlanet site pages to look at the research infrastructure, where you can all, and through that, join the society. It's very cheap, it's very reasonable, particularly for early career researchers, but also for people from what we call the widening access countries, where perhaps incomes are not so high. We have a special rate for them as well. And please look at the conference site, EPSC 2022. We will shortly in the next few months be launching a call for abstracts. There are bursaries to attend the meeting for early career and people from widening participation countries. And as I say, we all hope to see you at Granada. It'll be the first time we've had a meeting face-to-face since 2020. And I think we're all looking forward to that opportunity to actually network, stand around the coffee, go out to dinner in the evenings, and do what actually leads to a lot of good science, talk to one another, because that's how we lead to collaborations. So on behalf of Europlanet Society and the Europlanet Research Infrastructure, very much welcome. Can I also just take the opportunity to thank all the people who have organized this? It's a very exciting program and a lot of work has gone into it. And I think you're going to all have a really exciting and perhaps almost life-changing week where you really see things that perhaps will decide what you want to do in the future. And for more experienced ones, new ideas and new people too. So thank you very much, Barbara. Thank you, Angelo. I'll go back to you. And as I say, I wish you all a great week. I only just wish that we were actually meeting face to face, but we